Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We are starting a little late, but that is okay. My name is Nicole Jackson. I am one of the planning team co-chairs for Black Birders Week. It is the 5th year of Black Birders Week, and as you can see behind me, our theme is Wings of Justice, Soaring for Change. And today is day 2 of Black Birders Week. Day of Roost is the theme, so we're focusing on mental health, how birds impact our mental health, as well as nature, and finding connection through nature and the outdoors as far as healing, restoration of the body, mind, soul, all of those things. So I'm super excited to be with you today. First off, again, I want to thank the planning team for helping on the back end put things together. So we have a great week ahead for you. It is the second day. It feels like we've been doing this for a few days already. But it is only day 2 and we have so much more to come. Again, hopefully you had time to check out our website, which has a lot of information on our virtual events, in-person community events, as well as our partner events. Some of that information will be updated as the days go on, as far as new information. But we also have our giveaways and activities, so feel free to check those out. You still have time to enter your submission for the giveaways today. And we have some really cool things. I will also be adding another giveaway after this because we were a little behind yesterday. So that will be posted soon after this talk. This will be available to rewatch if anyone is unavailable at this time to view the webinar or the discussion. I also want to thank sponsors. So we have Wild Birds Unlimited as a sponsor this year, National Audubon Society, our collaborators. So Bird Collective, which has created or helped find an artist to create our shirt for our bird collection. And we are highlighting the corvid family this year, which we're super excited about. So feel free to check out birdcollective.com and find our collection in terms of shirt and tote bag. And be sure to check us out for more information on that. As well as Casey Gerard, who created portraits for us of the planning team and some artwork representing the magpie jay, the black-billed magpie jay. So check out her Etsy page, Casey Gerard, as well as, check out their, mispronouncing pronouns, check out their Etsy page as well as their Instagram page to get more information on the portraits, as well as the feature of one of the corvids that we will be highlighting. So without further ado, we have our special guest, Lauren Jackson. We're going to be talking about birds, health, and justice, her experience with getting cancer diagnosis, but also connecting with outdoors and nature and using that as a healing tool. So I will be bringing in Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hi.
It's so good to see you. We got a little late start, but I think we're all good.
Yes.
And I will make sure I have my water because my voice is kind of cracking from being sick, but I'm on the mend. So
okay, good to hear.
Drinking lots of water, staying hydrated. Stay hydrated, people, because it's getting hotter outside. So definitely stay hydrated. So welcome. So I'm so excited to have you here just because our previous, check-in conversation and learning more about your experience was just like blew my mind, but also just how amazing you are and like your, energy is beautiful. Like you just have such great energy, and it was so wonderful just to share with you about like my interest in wanting to connect, but also just hearing more about your story and your background. So let's get started with that. Before we get into the discussion questions, if you are viewing on any of our platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, please feel free to put in the comments or the chat where you're viewing from. Hopefully that pops up on my end so I can highlight some of the questions or comments from the audience. And I am based in Columbus, Ohio. Where are you based, Lauren?
I am currently in Conroe, Texas.
Awesome. And for the record, I don't think so, but we have the same last name, but I don't think we're related. So
yeah.
But maybe.
But
I am so excited to get started with this conversation just because you have so much. Obviously, we won't be able to get to everything, but I feel like you'll have some gems to drop and just, really just sharing more about your experience so people can have a better understanding of what you've had to go through these past few years and where you are now and where you want to move forward to.
Yes, I'm very excited.
All right. So first question, can you share how your journey, let's start with your nature journey. Like, how did you connect with nature, or do you have any memories of nature and the outdoors before you got your cancer diagnosis? And then we can go from there.
Yes. So the way that I originally connected with nature was that I ended up graduating with my degree in applied ecology. So I was going to school for essentially wildlife biology. I was focused on herpetology, but once I finally got graduated and got involved more, my first job that I was offered was through the Pathways program with the Forest Service. And the forest that I ended up on was focusing on red-cockaded woodpeckers. That's what the RCW is. So if I use that, please know that that's what I'm referring to. That would be that would be definitely how I got my start. Like so many of us biologists, I knew I wanted to work with animals, and I really thought the only way was through veterinary sciences, and boy, was I wrong. Every day was different in the field, and it took shape and it went from there. And that was like that was my first initial connection with nature.
So was that experience just out of curiosity? Did you have mentors? Did you have people kind of guiding you through figuring out the career path?
Actually, I did. So I remember when I came into it, I was I didn't know like what my options were. I was very unsure of how the whole thing worked. Like, what is it that I'm going to be doing? But once I switched majors from pre-veterinary sciences to applied ecology. And once I did that, I was doing an internship that I had kind of like fallen into. And it was through Dr. Bateman. We were looking at biocontrol beetles and South willow flycatchers on the San Pedro River. And she really kind of nurtured and poured into this inner scientist and encouraged me to look at what was happening, look at the results of the things that we were manipulating, and not really being afraid of really going out there. There was nothing that she ever asked me to do that she did not do herself, because there was times where she was like stomping through that desert, and I was like, absolutely not. I am not going throughout all of that, but once I saw her do it, I definitely knew that it was something that I could do. And she really kind of helped me build that confidence in the field. And she was also a birder herself. So I kind of got the best of both worlds, where I was working with herpetology and ornithology and, getting poured into in that. And once I was able to kind of gain the confidence from being out there, because we were in a riparian habitat, which is a lot of cottonwood, a lot of mesquite, a lot of willow. And once you can go through that, I promise you can go through anything, because that is not easy, especially once you get salt cedar that's falling on top of each other. Some of those wheelbarrow routines we were having to do to get the vegetation measurements were absolutely out of control. But that's where it started. And once I was able to do that, once I got to my forest in the Forest Service, I was on the Angelina Sabine, working with red-cockaded woodpeckers. It's a very active job,
Yeah.
being in this field. And essentially, what you have to do for the nesting season is you have to operate this peeping pole, which is like 40 feet long, and you're clicking it all the way up, and these breezes are coming. And it takes a lot of work to try to get this pole and this camera into this super tiny hole. Um,
Mm.
and so once you do that, you start climbing 40 feet, and
Hmm.
you kind of start pouring into yourself, and you keep going to see what else that there is that you can see. Like, if this
Right.
is what I can see with this little bit, what else can I do? And it just kind of took off from there.
So there's a lot of effort, like physical effort you have to put in to being in those spaces, but also the mental, having to be aware of your surroundings and, as you're collecting
Yeah.
data. So how did that feel for you? Was it like a big transition for you, or was it pretty easy?
It was a huge transition because where I was at, so at Arizona State, they were very positive, very much, like I said, into pouring into their students, especially in the STEM field. So to go from that to this very small town, which a lot of us who have ever worked in wildlife biology or ecology or any part of the field know that often you have to go to some of the out of the way places to
Yeah.
work with the species of your choice. And so to go from this very positive experience to this experience where people kind of like did not want you involved
Hmm.
and did not want you there was very shaking, to say the least. I at first I thought it was because of the way that I was coming about it, because I was working for the federal government, and
Right.
they have been known to, push people around and take things that aren't theirs for quite some time. So we all
Hmm.
know how the federal government could be. And I thought that a lot of it was coming from that kind of Forest Service, federal government kind of push. But come to find out, it was just from very small minded thoughts. And to have to deal with that when even at the end of the day I was working was very surprising and hurtful. Um,
Mm.
I can't, like, the toll it took on my mental health was, it's so many of us refer to ourselves as like birders and
Yep.
biologists and naturalists. So it's, what do you call yourself when you're not allowed to be that? When
Right.
you're in this space where people are like, oh, well, you're not that,
Yeah.
or oh, I'm the, well, they had to make this very clear definition. Well, you're not a biologist, you're a wildlife tech, and it was like,
Right.
what does that really matter? At
Yeah.
the end of the day, like, I'm the one who's doing all the data collection, and then I help you do the rest of it. So to be kind of forced out of a space, or have people to attempt to force me out of this space, was incredibly hurtful. And I
Mm.
thought that it would be to a point where I would never want to return to wildlife, that I would never want to be in the field again, that I would never want to really be outside, and that it wouldn't be enjoyable,
Right.
because there was such a bizarre pushback when it came to me working with birds. And I did not suspect that it would be. Uh,
Hmm.
because why would it? It's public land, and it's something that we all could enjoy. We often talk about how diversity is so important in, ecosystems and wildlife, and this very big part of what we do. But when we talk about having diversity in the field and having diversity in the workplace and that train of thought, there's a lot of
Right.
pushback from it. And there's this very odd belief that if you did not grow up doing things in nature or outside, that you don't belong in them. And
Mm.
that is not furthest thing from being true whatsoever.
Yeah.
That was not part of how I grew up. But having to make a seat for myself was exhausting after a
Hmm.
while. And
Hmm.
I did start to understand why so many people, especially people of color, would leave things, not just wildlife, but other fields in general,
Yeah.
because it can be so hard just to exist. I
Yeah.
mean, regardless of what my job was with the Forest Service, I thought that having that kind of protection, I guess, of being a, working with the federal government, I thought that people would at least understand, like, oh, she must be working. She must be, doing something important. Surely a random person would not just steal a government vehicle and,
Right.
go hiking about in the middle of the forest. But to have people do things like follow me,
Mhm.
intentionally mess with me during hunting season,
Yeah.
um, outright just calling me names and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It was bizarre, and it was unexpected because not unexpected. It was troubling because they don't allow you to carry a weapon, and
Yeah.
you're when you're out there, you're out there, and
Yeah.
sometimes the
And you're
best.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that uh, for a while there, my favorite thing got to be something that I was fearful that I was not going to be able to continue to do anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but once I was able to heal from the damage that had been done from my experience with the Forest Service, especially on that forest, being back in it has only brought me peace
Hmm.
and some kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for here, acceptance.
Yeah.
Because bird species could care less about the color
Right.
of your skin and
Hmm.
what you've done and what you've accomplished. So to go back out and be with the RCW now, it's like peace, but also a sense of accomplishment, because now I know that what happened to me isn't make believe, and
Hmm.
it's over now in some way, shape, or form. I have some closure on that experience, and I know that I can fight back, and
Hmm.
that I will do my best to inspire other people to do so, because everybody has the right to enjoy the outdoors.
Right. Yeah. Which is what, like, thinking about that of, you hear the comments of it shouldn't be about race. Trust me, I would love to not have to talk about.
Yeah,
Like, that's the
yeah,
last thing I want to talk about in those situations. But we are, that's our history. Like, our history
yeah,
has shown us time and time again that those experiences are valid. And we the fact that we can't be angry when these
yeah,
things happen is just as frustrating, because our anger is warranted, and we're not just saying things to say things, to cause drama, like, but like we're really experiencing these, and I'm not saying, like every single Black person experiences
yeah,
that, but overall, like, we can connect, to um things that we've experienced, family members, friends,
mhm,
that look like us in similar ways, no matter how small. We know those, are little cuts, each
yes,
time. And we're constantly trying to find ways to heal and just move forward and enjoy life and be present. And most importantly, love ourselves. Like, that's a big
yeah,
part of it too. So I think having that, um, burden put on you when you were there to do something very, basic, although technical, but
yeah,
like the work itself should have been your full priority versus having to worry about microaggressions or your safety and
yeah.
things like that.
I mean, it microaggressions was kind of how it had just started. After a while, I had to start fearing for my safety,
Mhm.
because it was not just some of the people who were around in the area. It was my coworkers too, who
Mhm.
felt that I just did not deserve to to be in that position, to be involved, to be outside, whatever definition or whatever term you want to slap on it. I remember because it's very wet out here in
Yeah.
Houston or Conroe if you haven't been paying attention, but it's even wetter on the Angelina Sabine. And
Hmm.
one of the things that happened frequently was that our vehicles would get stuck, and we had I can't remember the terminology, but it was a so you could tow yourself out,
Yeah.
and a winch, I think, on the front of the truck. And mine had broken, and I had called for help. And
Mm.
one of my white male coworkers, who was in no way in charge of my training, in no way
Right.
in my chain of command or anything, insisted that I be left out there so that I finally learned to fend for myself.
Mm.
Um, Now, I don't know why he made the assumption that I did not know how to fend for myself, being
Right.
that I am also a veteran to
Hmm.
this country, but it should not matter. If I were white, that conversation would not have ever happened. I've watched um, my other coworkers get stuck in situations that were far simpler than mine, and people
Hmm.
did not hesitate to help them. And when I got stuck, I'd be stuck in some very scary areas, and landowners can be very picky
Right.
about you being on their land. And because of the way that the forest is out here, it's a mosaic kind of private landowners and then public lands around it.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I would be walking these borderlines, and I'm sure we've all run into landowners. We've all heard the stories about private landowners and their property.
Yeah.
And I don't think that me being a member of the federal government helped. And then on top of that, a woman of color
Hmm.
also never helped. It got down to people just downright, yelling blatant racial things at me while I was off and not off of work. So yeah, Hunter is saying things like, "Oh, if you were a deer, I would have got you." And it's just like, what is the yeah? Oh yeah, And what would be the necessary? Like, what was the outcome in that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what was that meant to prove or
Right.
provide to the conversation?
Wait, what is the point?
Yes,
What is
and
the point? And there's fear behind that. Like there's
yes,
absolute
and that
fear
was,
behind
I think what was the most frustrating thing was the lack of ability for my office and for my work to have anything to do. They essentially would give me the number to the LEO, which is our law enforcement officer, and I would just have to call him. And we're in the sometimes
Yeah.
out, by the time I
Right. And even like thinking about,
yeah, and
protections and like who to talk to, who not to talk
yes.
to, like it's a whole spectrum of things that you have to be like, oh, this isn't as simple as people think it is.
No, not at all. And I would still have data to collect, and they would not care if someone had said or done something, or if I felt uncomfortable. They would be like, "Yeah, no, we don't care. Like, you need to get that data." And there was nothing in place, nor is there anything in place for people who run into that situation. I
Mhm.
used to bring that up to them often, that was going to be something that they needed to improve or work on, because it does add to, you know, just your ability to safely go out and do your job.
Right.
Like, think about all the things that could happen to you just as a regular driver, from a tire blowout to something else. Now let's apply that to a, random area in the middle of nowhere where not everybody is an open thinker. There are things that they need or that they should have done and that they should do that protect people like me who are out there working
Mm-hmm.
at the very least. But
Wow. Yeah, this is a lot. Like, thank you for sharing. I know this
yeah,
isn't easy. And you've done a lot of um healing and continuing to heal, but I thank you
yes,
so much for sharing and being vulnerable in this space. And it's important for other Black people to hear these stories and these experiences, because it does become isolating to where it's like, is it just me?
yeah,
Do should I share these things often? And
yeah,
like you were talking about pushback, like that's a fear of mine too, of like sharing something you instantly regret it because you don't know how it's going to be perceived or received.
yeah.
Um, but you can't hold those things in. It will destroy
No,
you. So I this is so needed. Which is why I reached out to you, because like I
yeah.
just
Thank
knew,
you.
like, yes, this is so important. This is part of why we're doing the work we're doing in regards to Black Birders Week. And yes, we're celebrating and talking about our passion for birds and STEM and
Yes,
these activities, but also the experiences are just as important because it shows um, the the challenges and the hurdles that we constantly are up against, for
yeah,
just being able to have more healing and joy um,
yeah,
in our lives and build community. So I feel like it's so important to, some people may think it's, too serious or too heavy, but like you can't have just the good stuff all the time. Like sometimes
no,
and that's where the growth happens. That's where the awareness, is, but also just a better understanding of how we can do better. Like once we are able to bring in the compassion and empathy into the conversation and really, thinking about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, like I think you have a better understanding of how you can better show up for someone
yeah,
that's going through something difficult. So, whew, yeah.
yeah.
And I know we're already in like sort of heavy mode with all you just shared. But I want to move into the you know the diagnosis itself
Mhm.
and how that's transformed um, your life and kind of thinking back to what you were saying. There was a point where you were thinking about disconnecting from that interest and that passion. Um, so yeah, if you want to share, a little bit more about when your cancer diagnosis happened, and what took place after that, and how did it help you rebuild yourself and your relationship with nature?
So, and thank you very much.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, and I want to say,
yeah,
sorry, because you mentioned this. It was in my head, but I'm like, ooh, let me rewind. You mentioned being a veteran. It is Memorial Day, everybody. Thank you for your service.
oh, thank you.
So appreciated.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I it days like today, I would spend so like now I'm like, oh, where do I even begin?
Yeah.
Because there's so much that definitely goes into it, especially like your mental health and
Mhm.
mindfulness. But I will start, I think, with my diagnosis because what I don't want is for anybody like there are some things I think that when you share them, healing happens, and
Yeah.
then you can keep somebody else from having this experience again.
Hmm.
So actually, when I after I had this experience with the Forest Service, that kind of put me in a position of what am I even doing in this field?
Hmm.
I still went to get my master's in wildlife ecology at NMSU.
Hmm.
And around this time, I had noticed like a lot of physical and mental changes that were just not normal.
Hmm.
And actually, to kind of backpedal back, one of the things that was also an issue where I was at, so this little place was called Lufkin, Texas.
Hmm.
There's lots of reasons why you might have heard about Lufkin before. If you're ever wondering, it's the home of the ice cream licking debacle. The girl who
Oh,
opened the
yeah.
Bluebell ice cream and licked it and put it back in the freezer. That happened in Lufkin. So let's just put it to you that way.
Mhm.
Um, when I was there, I first started showing signs, but I was misdiagnosed because they thought it was something that Black women who don't have children under 30 would get, like some kind of calcium deposit
Wow.
that they monitored for pretty much from 2020 up until I left. Actually, from 2019 up until I left in about 2021. So they never did a biopsy on it. They just did ultrasounds and measured it, and there was never any changes. So fast forward to my time at NMSU,
Mhm.
and I am essentially kind of fighting for my health. I'm fighting to get seen and fighting for someone to have a look because I do have breast cancer. So I was trying to have someone to look at the lump that had grown in my breast, and
Mhm.
I was denied um,
Mhm.
get seen a couple of times. I was misdiagnosed an additional 3 times
Wow.
before, of course, it took another Black surgeon to catch that it was not what was the last thing I had been told? An abscess. Um,
Mm.
she was able to kind of kickstart everything, so I was able to get diagnosed
Mhm.
with breast cancer. And around about that time, I had started losing my ability to walk. And that is when I first started to really wish that I was able to return to the field again,
Yeah.
to at least be able to partake in some hiking and seeing some wildlife, like as much as I possibly could, because they were essentially telling me that my hip had been eaten away by cancer cells. And
Mhm.
um, the whole time they're talking about repairing my body and
Yeah.
getting me back to, a stable, um, to being stable. All I could think about was birding or I'm sorry, but snakes was my other
Yeah.
my other
Yeah.
big passion. But all I could think about was like looking up and then looking down and looking up and looking down,
Mhm.
hoping that I got to see something out there in the field. So one of the things that I think kept me going when I was really going through the initial stages of cancer treatment was being able to return to hiking and being outside because, like I was saying, there is that peace there. And one thing that I also learned is that there you can practice some mindfulness, I think, with your bird calls. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds so crazy, but
It's not.
if you take a second and because you're just focusing on the moment, on the here and now,
Mhm.
if you pick a bird, something that's super distinctive or that you recognize,
Yeah.
like I don't know, we'll just go with like a cardinal.
Mhm.
You could really kind of just focus on that and work on your breathing and just you and that cardinal. And if I don't know what everybody does, if you want to write
Yeah.
it down, if you take notes or you use the Merlin bird app, but
Mhm.
even going through and just focusing on those bird calls and using that to calm your breathing down and focus on the here and now definitely help take care of or like some of that anxiety, some of that like impending doom that I
Yeah.
was feeling. And I did that at the park, my parents' like local park for as long as I could before I went to
Mhm.
the oncologist. And I was like, look,
Yeah.
the sparrows and then the starlings are killing me. Like I need more. Like I need to go back to some
Yeah.
diversity and seeing some
Mhm.
cool, other species. And she encouraged me to find other ways that were not as impactful on my body. Excuse me. That were not as impactful on my body to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah.
When I was in Arizona, it was a lot easier to do that. So I got the okay to go kayaking, and
Mm-hmm.
that allowed me to get access to other birds. And if you're ever in Arizona, Saguaro Lake has, especially if you go kayaking, you can get some really good pictures and views of bald eagles there,
Mm-hmm.
um, up until about June, I believe. But uh, being able to do that and seeing something that kind of took me back to being, who knows where in the middle of the forest somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
really helped me uh, reconnect and remember a little bit of who I was so that
Mm-hmm.
I could push forward and hopefully begin to do more as far as, birding was concerned, and reaching back out to being, a little bit deeper and more connected with nature.
Yeah. So I just put up one of the comments. So we have some comments coming in, and Dante Jackson, another Jackson, um, says, yes, birding is a very mindful practice. And I very much agree with that. It
Yeah,
does slow you down instantly and like refocuses your breath and like your
yeah,
focus in a way that prevents you from spiraling. I always just like,
yes.
you can be so in your head and like the negative thoughts take control and it's not fun.
No, it is not. And it's funny because what I also ended up noticing too was sometimes even my breathing is too loud. If I'm walking, I'm like, I can't quite make that bird out. So
Mhm.
I'm like trying to like not breathe as loud or keep it in so I can hear,
Mhm.
where it's coming from and see if I can make it out. And it really does help you. And like I was saying, that kind of doom, and it takes me out of that for a while.
Yeah.
And even if it's just for like a couple of hours, I'm a healthy human being again, and I don't have this like, and I often don't feel like that, obviously.
Yeah.
I just am able to do that and that only, and it, like
Mhm.
we were saying, it brings that blood pressure down, it helps calm
Mhm.
you down, bring you a little bit of peace.
Mhm. And you
Sometimes,
feel more normal. Like
yes,
this feels normal, you know? It's very mundane, but like I'm really looking for some normalcy right now, and
but
this is
also
helping
very
do
calming. Yes.
that.
And all that walking and stuff, it is a little bit of a workout. So, like,
Mhm.
you're getting, depending on how excited you get, because, sometimes for me, if I hear something, I get to walk
Yes.
a little fast because I want
You're
to know where
booking
it's
it,
coming
like, I
from.
gotta find you, yeah.
Yeah. And then you try to do the stop, but that, then you go home, and not only did you find a little bit of peace and you've calmed down, like you're resting a little bit
Yep.
better, you're
Mhm.
sleeping better that at night.
Mhm.
And that little bit of activity really did help keep me going as far as like not being, because I don't know anybody who could sit in the house all day, every day like that, just
Yeah.
waiting for their body to heal. So being
Mhm.
able to do that, allowed my body to heal in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to kind of heal from the other stuff that I had been going through
Mhm.
as well, finding some acceptance outside again, feeling welcomed outside again.
Yeah.
I ultimately achieved through birding again, and it was far more rewarding than I think I thought it was in the past,
Yeah.
especially coming from a position where I was so hands on with the birds. I remember thinking that I wouldn't have the same like kind of redeeming kind of factor, but that is
Mhm.
not the truth. When you when
Mhm.
you have been looking for a particular bird and you hear that bird call and you're able to mark it
Yeah.
off your list, man, oh man, is
Oh
that
my goodness.
is that a
The
good
best
is
feeling.
that a good
Oh my
day? Yeah.
goodness. I
Yes.
love that. Yeah, this is I'm literally like as you're talking, I'm getting emotional because it's so deep. Like I like just hearing someone else talk about birds and like my experiences, like I've had similar experiences where I'm like, I know this is doing something for me. I know this is
Yeah.
transforming my life. and like realizing like you're worthy of that. Like to
Yeah.
even question like, okay, should I be happy right now?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's so weird like to have those questions, but like, you know, it's just like, oh my goodness, I had the best day just because I went out to bird watch or did do a nature walk.
But you spread that. You spread
And
that around to the
yeah,
other
it becomes
people that
contagious.
yes, and then you never know who you might inspire or get
Mhm.
involved because for me, my goal is if I can even get you to Google
Yeah.
one single bird, and you learn one cool fact, you're gonna know that cool fact, and every time
Right.
somebody gives
It
a cool fact
stays.
about birds, you're gonna have it, right? And
Mhm.
who knows where that cool fact will take you, but it can go to a lot of different places and hopefully get more people outside because the more
Yeah.
people who are doing it, the better it gets,
Yeah.
for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Even now, so one of the I mean, like, not trying to like skip ahead or anything, but one of
You're
the
good.
things
You're
that
good.
we had was
You're
about
good.
how I bring birding into my daily life.
Yes.
And right now, while I'm, in school and everything else, what I've done is like most birders, I have all my bird feeders and my hummingbird feeders
Mhm.
out. But what's funny to me is that my fiance has gotten involved because he wants to know what's so cool and
Yeah. Like, why are you so drawn to this thing?
yes,
Yeah.
and why is this such a big deal? And and he doesn't know any of the species, but he's just excited to see whatever they're beefing on, or like whatever
It's like a whole like drama, like
yes,
reality TV drama for birds.
yes. And he talks to his people at work, and now there's more people involved, and they
Mhm.
go and they tell that to somebody else, and now you have somewhere along the line, you hopefully have a
Yeah.
new birder. And I it's funny because the same thing that can heal you can kind of hurt you, and birding I think is in that place right now where it's like you can go out and it only
Mhm.
really takes like one time to really discourage somebody
Yeah.
who is either brand new to birding or has been doing it for 10 years.
Mhm.
Like it only takes that one time to discourage them, and it can last such a long time. And
Yeah.
that person can be, and then they might discourage their kids. And the more people we have involved in this, the better off we are. So I just, if you can support somebody in going
Mhm.
birding with them, even I tell you, I've brought people with me, and all they do is just walk around, but they have questions,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and they've learned something, and that's actually support. Even
Yeah.
letting us go sometimes out by ourselves is supportive.
Mhm.
um but it sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent and I
No,
started
you're
thinking
good.
about
And I
birding.
think so when you're talking about because there's the and I think about this so there's so many connections that I'm making of what we have ahead for
Yeah,
Black Birders Week, and you're talking about practices, and I'm thinking about rituals. So getting into the practice of doing more of these nature activities and mindfulness activities, and it's helpful because I feel like in anything that we do, um, practicing like
yeah,
that's progress. Practice is progress. So having that understanding that there's the relationship of I'm taking my time to learn about this activity, and
yeah,
then circling back to like reflecting on what it's doing for you, what it's doing for the relationships that you not only have with nature and wildlife but with people. Like nature teaches us, and thinking about the conversation I had with Rodney Stotts on Saturday, of like it really, to me, it really helps build like better my relationships, and like nature
yeah,
kind of shows you like you can be more gentle with yourself, or you
yeah,
can, you don't have to be so hard on yourself, or that moment of, just noise and chaos, and you just need that little bit of silence
yeah,
in nature, and it's like, oh, this is what it feels like to be calm or like not anxious, or you know um you know, letting your negative thoughts take control. But like it's this like rhythm, like you're getting back into this like circadian rhythm with
yes,
yourself and with nature to just be like, I'm gonna be okay. Like everything's gonna be okay. And pay more attention to that rhythm to where it's like you it's like a second language. You just know, because like for me, I know when I'm like stressed or anxious or like
Yeah.
going through something hard, I'm like, go for a walk, Nicole, and within a few minutes I'm good. Like I just needed to be outside. So having that connection in that way where you're thinking about, practicing or rituals that help you learn how to build a relationship, rebuild a relationship with yourself, but also acknowledge the force of nature, the powerful healing benefits of nature. And even thinking about like when you're talking about mentors and having people be a part of that experience with you and helping you, it's like we still need to bring in that curiosity, that sense of wonder that we had, when we were kids, because we become so rigid and like when we become adults, we're just like, boom, 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 everything is needs to be, specific and like the hard corners, like it's not soft. It doesn't feel soft. So we need to get back to that softness and understanding that, having that sense of wonder and curiosity and that smile that those fun and unexpected experiences bring. Like you can have that throughout your life. It doesn't have to be just because, I was a kid and, running around and playing in the dirt and like climbing trees and all that stuff. And like, then there's a cutoff point because you're, quote unquote, an adult. Like you can keep that.
Yeah. And so, it's funny that you say that, because when you're talking, I am in no way comparing animals and people or children or anything of the sort. But when you watch birds, right, when they drop something, or when a nest fails, or it, pick a situation, they don't have this, they don't mope, right? There's no
back to it.
There's no shucks. Yep. No, instinctually they just try again. And isn't that something? Yep. They just try again. They don't think about whether or not they can or cannot. They just go back to trying. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they're successful is something completely different. And yep. And I'm not talking about any species, just a huge generalization of, birds and their activities, but it's when you watch them, I think you get some of that wonder back, because they're living within, these very instinctual confines, and, all this other stuff that we sit here and think about, there's nothing like that when you're birding. And so I think that's one of the things that we take from it, is not just that peace, not just that being away, but it's like life interrupted, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, there is no, all these other emotions, just simply trying to live. And I think that's the part that kind of calms us down. And you kind of see, like, if this Abrams sparrow can make it, then, I can too. Surely, with my resolve and my ability to use tools, surely I can figure out whatever it is that's ailing me.
Right. But and there's so much of that shows up in nature, like birds specifically, like the rejection, and you're just watching it as a human. You're like, oh, but then they just keep going. Like I think about the bowerbird, like and how they get like over and over and over, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna keep trying. And it's like, what? Like how do you? Like,
and how do we as people try to embrace that? We watch it, we study it, we, if we can, sadly enough, we'll exploit it, but it's watching that, I think is also just as peaceful and as calming as anything else is. I think it's just a little bit more exciting, because you don't know what you're going to get. It's not like an aquarium where, you're kind of like, this is what you're going to get every time.
Right.
Going in December, going at the beginning of December can give you completely different birds than going, 2 or 3 weeks later in comparison to 2 or 3 months later.
Right.
And those are different lives and experiences that you're getting every time. So I think seeing that simplicity brings some of that wonder back, because it's just is and is not I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does.
yeah.
It keeps things like, yeah, like you were saying, simplicity, but with that simplicity there's a flow, there's a rhythm connected to like the balance. It's just reminding you that there's a balance,
Yeah.
and that things are perfectly imperfect.
Yes. And really, for me, anyways, I start thinking about the larger web and
Hmm.
the major part that these birds have to play in it,
Yep.
and they're still just living,
Yep.
right? And they're
And
not,
it's so complex, but
yeah,
it's so simple.
but they're
It's
not crumbling under the pressure. They're not worried about is this nest going to be enough? Are these nestlings going? They're not worried about that. They're simply living, and so I think
Mhm.
that's something that we can definitely take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of the species, when you're birding. Yeah.
Yeah. This is awesome. I want to get into kind of you're talking about the mindfulness and the
Yes.
practicing. I want to know what's your jam. Like when you're outside, what you're
Mm.
like, you're like super giddy about, because I have plants, I have like little baby goslings, things that I get super
Yeah.
excited about no matter how many times I see it.
Okay. I know it's birders, but I
No,
love
you're
a good
good.
snake.
Whatever you,
When
yeah,
I
feel
when I
free
see
to.
when I see a snake, it's a snake made to be alive. I there's nothing better. For
Mhm.
me, there's nothing better. Now, if I see a snake and oh gosh, because now I'm trying to pick a bird. Because I used to love bald eagles
Mhm.
until I started working with them. And I call like they're beautiful birds, but they are the most oh gosh, because they're just like really regal buzzards. Like
Mhm.
they are they look so determined and patient. Yeah, that's so
Yes.
funny. He says it about the herons, but yeah, it's I think I'm still a big fan of the bald eagle, but I do think I don't know the red cockaded woodpecker is kind of like stolen a place in my heart just
Mhm.
because of watching and learning and seeing that kind of struggle, seeing that
Yeah.
life cycle, knowing kind of how helpless they can be, and then watching them still grow through all of that adversity to a point where I can watch, like 2 or 3 generations. That is something that I think is um, one of those things that you only get to see like on BBC. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's able to work with an endangered species and
Mhm.
like go back and be like, oh my gosh, 2 years ago I worked with this bird's like,
Mhm.
grandmother or something like that. That to me is a is an experience that would I think move anybody to tears.
Right.
Um, Going out and seeing that a cluster is doing well has moved me to tears. If you follow
Mhm.
me on TikTok or Instagram, you have seen that. It can and will move me to tears. I'm
Mhm.
trying to think, being on the water and seeing
Mhm.
any kind of hawk, um, that is, I have so many jams. I'm like, that's a jam.
Right. Didn't realize how long the list is. Yeah.
Yes, like I think any unexpected getting to see any kind of wildlife unexpected is
Mhm.
a jam.
Yeah.
You get to see them, as they fly or sometimes, just chilling in a tree, but seeing them do something that you would not normally get to see them hunt.
Right.
Or I'm see them do like hunting or I don't know, building a nest or
Mhm.
anything like that is got to be up there with one of the best things that you can experience. I have gotten to see some birds. I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to see, so that's on my
Mhm.
jam list as well.
Mhm. Lauren Farr says, "Go team."
Oh, it's nice to know she's on here. Yeah.
Yay,
I remember being like, I don't know. I remember having like mixed emotions about the woodpecker. And now I'm like, man, it's such a, that bird is so interesting. It's insane, but they all are, just in their own,
yeah, they have their own uniqueness. And
yes,
that's why I have such a hard time telling people, like, when they were like, when they're like, what's your favorite? And I'm like, anyone I haven't seen yet, because I'm not going to see them all in my lifetime. So like, every time I see a new one, I'm like, ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one. It's never as specific, because then, that assumes that you've seen and experienced every bird, and I don't think that's possible. So
yes.
Yeah. So we have a question from David. Because you talked about snakes. What's your favorite snake?
Ooh, I would say probably the king snake, more for what it can do for how people view snakes, I'm hoping, than anything else, but definitely the king snakes. Really good at keeping away some of your other venomous snakes. And I think they get a bad rap because of how big they can get. And I think people just assume that they're venomous, and that's why we have so many venomous snakes. But that's a conversation for a different time. Yeah, I have some science to back all of that up in case anybody's wondering. But yes, definitely the king snake is up there. After that, any snake, really. Yeah, anyone is it any live snake. That's any live snake is a welcome treat. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely like, I am all things nature. People assume that I'm just birds, and I'm like, nope. I literally was that kid reading books about every animal, like, that I could think of. I'm like, I'm gonna go find a book at the library, and like, just as fast, it could be about a centipede, and I'm like, yay.
Well, you also, you can't forget about some of the habitat and the, like having to learn about the longleaf pine out here. I did not know that pine could have such a storied past. And let me tell you, at least out here, the longleaf pine has quite the history to it. And it's funny because it helps shape some of the reasons why the RCW is endangered now. And it helps you understand some of the reasons why we do some of the things that we do, as like land stewards. And I say that as like, BLM and everybody else involved, because my brain just left. But, all of these things that go into it. I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah.
So your mind is going a mile a minute, and you're like, all the thoughts right now.
Yes.
So we have a few more minutes, but if anybody has any other questions, feel free to put those in the comments. And if not, that's totally fine, because I feel like I can talk to Lauren for another 5 hours, but I'll have to wrap this up, I guess. But I wanted to, the last question I wanted to ask was, again, circling back to your healing journey and what that looks like now, and thinking about moving forward. How has that transformed your relationship with yourself? Have you changed, how you thought about caring for yourself, caring for other people? Like, what's been the reflection? And then how would you encourage others who are going through something similar, as far as, getting a cancer diagnosis or even being misdiagnosed? What advice would you give them in terms of using nature or starting to use nature as a healing tool to move through that struggle?
I would say to get your peace outside first. but do that first. Get your peace, whatever that looks like for you, whatever that is for you, you do that. So for me, I struggled with the fact that I was like, so you're telling me I've been doing this since like 2016, and at the drop of a dime, I'm just supposed to forget
Yeah.
all of the outside.
Yeah.
And, ultimately what I decided was the best thing for me to do was to find other ways to be involved with outside that were just not as trying or physical on my body. So I am now getting my master's so I can teach. And then I'm going to get my PhD so I can profess. But
Yes. Yes.
I want to definitely be at HBCUs and or really wherever they'll have me to get people involved in 100 level, 200 level wildlife biology classes, birding classes, or at least wildlife as it applies to biology. So that way we're showing people that there's more to the outside other than just jet skis,
Yeah.
ATVs, and boats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, but I think that's the best place to start is to find your peace and then find out what's going to work for you in the long run. That's going to enable you to keep keep going, keep living, keep doing whatever it is that you're passionate about. I remember my parents asking me, "Well, isn't there anything else that you want to do?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Actually, no. Like this is it, and
Mhm.
within these parameters like that, that's all that there is." And I could care less about the physicality, but it is very physical, and it can get very physical. But finding other ways to do it, like I said, I started kayaking, which took
Mhm.
me out in other directions that hiking couldn't do because I could
Yeah.
only go so far.
And
So
you mentioned the birding by kayak.
oh yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. Get your field guide, put it in a little plastic baggie,
Hmm.
whatever baggie, reusable one if you have one, of course, and your binoculars, and you are set. And you get to see. I have to look at my bird list, but you get to see some really different species when you bird by kayak. And
Yeah.
it was another way for me to bird, but still get away. And I didn't have to be, overly physical. And that was what worked for me. If you're going to deal, and there's other people who I know, like maybe not cancer, some long COVID people
Yeah. Hmm.
have had health impacts, but the piece that you can get outside, if that looks like you walking and you hike and you never stop hiking, then you do that. And that's, you find how you can keep doing that. If you can, find out how you can get paid to keep doing that. And when you can't hike anymore, get other people to hike, and it will help still pour into you, and you still feel like you're a part of that community, even if you can't be the same, as physical as you were in that community before. That is
Hmm.
probably the best advice that I could give. um, but yeah, for me, moving forward is definitely going to look like trying to pump as many as many Black people into birding and
Yeah.
wildlife biology
Yeah.
as possible.
I love that. I love that.
Um, and really keeping people out of the classroom and
Hmm.
showing people what there is outside, uh, in terms of mental health or science.
Hmm.
You know,
Mental health is so I mean, obviously it's been important, but like it's even
yeah,
more, for the Black community to realize that there's a connection when it comes to the outdoors and nature, and like connection to the land and relationship to self. And I think like highlighting this is so important. So I appreciate
yeah.
you for sharing all. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I really was just like,
Okay.
y'all, this is like so important. And it's a
Yeah.
lifelong healing. Like
Yes.
healing, there's no like expiration date when it comes to healing. It is forever a thing, until your last breath. So I think having that understanding of the benefits, like how it shows up in small and big ways,
Yeah.
um, is so key. But then also being able, like you were saying earlier, it's contagious, like passing that joy and connection to other people and show that they can be a part of that journey with you.
Yes. Yes. And even because when you think about, what was I just thinking? I was just thinking about something else about mental health. Oh, like even when you need a break from work, you usually step outside. It doesn't matter what's going on. It could be in the middle of you step outside. And I don't think that people see enough that there's something in that, even if it's something as simple as just watching like your super normal general species. You can gain from that, and you can kind of take a minute, stop from the scrolling, stop from the all the screens, and just enjoy that little bit of life.
Yeah.
Then that will still even kind of distract you and help you reel it in a little bit. So I would also encourage everyone to, if there's somebody in your office who's like, oh, I'll never do that, just encourage them to try and start with that, because you'd be surprised at how involved people can get just from their doorstep. But
it's better to say you tried it at least versus like I don't do that at all and you haven't even tried it. So I'm like, that's a whole different story. I'm like, at least try it. You could say, you know what, this isn't my jam. This isn't for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up. So I have a lot of, I think this is the other thing. I look forward to having more nature moments for myself and with other people, because those are memories that I can go back to when I am going through something difficult. And like, it's the most refreshing thing, because you can be going through something so dark or so exhausting to where you're just like, I don't know when I'm going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't want to feel, continue to feel like that. But also like when you have those memories to pull from and be like, oh, that's what I want more of.
Yeah.
How can I work towards? Then it's just like, oh, okay, this is getting easier and easier to get through those life hurdles.
Yes, that is incredibly true. There are some memories that I rely on pretty tough to help me get through. Oh gosh, there was a couple of years ago, I ran across, I think it was like a fledgling, but it was a red-cockaded woodpecker, and it was looking rough. I don't know what had happened to that poor thing, but it was not doing well. And ultimately, we ended up leaving it in the cluster, and it took a while for me to get it to take off. But when it finally did, like, it flew off, and it was totally okay. And I don't know, I like to think that that bird had a positive ending. I have no idea, but it reminds me to just like keep trying. I don't know if that really makes any sense, but that bird kept trying. So like, I know I can too when I'm really frustrated or irritated with something and I don't want to. I definitely rely on like little memories like that. Or if I'm really frustrated and there's a particularly beautiful place that I remember having went birding or something like that, I definitely picture that place and try to keep it in my mind's eye and use that to either calm me down or bring me into a better mood. Or sometimes even like just try plan a mini trip there in your mind. When I get back to this space, be surprised at like, how much better you feel just with the idea of getting back to your nature space or whatever space that it is that you have that makes you feel like you're connected and tapped in.
Yes. And we can be, again, so hard on ourselves and so negative, but to be able to switch that, and do the opposite of like bringing more of the light and the joy and the nurturing, especially with those memories, it's just like, it blocks out the darkness. And then you're just like, even more motivated to create more of those memories moving forward. So, Lauren, you're amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you guys too. Thank you.
And I feel like I'm just like I got like this boost. What am I thinking of? Dragon Ball Z? I don't know. That just came to my mind. I got this boost of energy and I feel awesome from having this conversation with you. And I hope everybody else that's
Yay.
viewing and tuning in feels the same, and that
Yes.
encourages you to, like, even if it's, the next few minutes, hours, tomorrow,
Yeah.
this week, to get out, connect with nature, bird watch, gardening. Like, summer is going to be here. It feels like
Yes.
it's here already, but summer is here.
Can't be
And
soon enough.
yes, finding that time for space with yourself and in connection with other people and community, it's contagious. Like, it
Yes, it
really
is.
is contagious, and people see that enthusiasm, they see that joy, and they want it themselves. So continue to spread that around everybody. It's so needed.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I want to thank you so much, Lauren,
Yes.
for being a part of Black Birders Week, as a special guest for this conversation with our theme, Day of Roost.
Yes.
And again, if anybody's tuning in or participating, be sure to find a way to share your experience, whether it's family, friends, online, offline, about how nature, birds impact your mental health.
Yeah.
And it is, again, Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm so glad we're having this conversation right now. This is amazing. And I always push for, rest and
Yes.
self-care, but also just, an opportunity to love on yourself through nature connection. So find your jam, everybody.
Yes.
Like, find your jam. Nature is always going to be there. Nature's honest. It's going to tell you like it is, but like you'll be better for it. So
There you go.
with that, if anyone's interested in learning more about your work and just your journey, how can they connect with you?
I was on Instagram. I think I'm going to get back on there now that school has kind of quieted down. I learned that I was one of those people that cannot do both.
Yeah. That's real. That's real.
I was like, no, I'm not one of those people. A lot of people could, and I could not. But now that I've passed some of the harder parts, I'm looking forward to getting back on there because I have been looking at different ways to apply what I've been doing to kind of shift into education, especially adult education, because that's a great place to start. We always focus on the kids, but we need
They're
laws.
still here too.
Yes. Right?
We can't be wasting away, y'all.
Yes. And we need stuff passed now. So I want to get people involved so we can think about the bills and the laws that we're passing. So I will be back on Instagram and hopefully teaching here and getting, thank you.
Sorry,
And
I'm going to put some stuff in the,
yeah.
so you can see what everybody's sharing. Thank you all.
Hopefully getting people involved in outdoor education and yes,
this is so important. And just showing like you can have these different versions of yourself that you're nurturing and amplifying. And we want to be able to show these different sides of ourselves to family, community, even the places where we work, and it be normalized. We don't have to feel isolated. We don't have to hide versions of ourselves, to feel accepted and included. So I think this is an opportunity to show people that can be done, and just the joy. It's the joy. It's the joy for me.
And you when you don't have it, you can go outside and you can get it, and it's free, and that's one of the best parts. Well, some places are, depending on where you're at, but
But it starts within. It starts within.
It
and
does.
You can collect it, more of it over time.
You can have some of the most genuine conversations with yourself when you are outside enjoying nature. That I can promise you.
Oh my goodness, I talk to myself all the time in nature because nature be telling me about myself, and I'm not ready sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Am I the drama? And nature's like, you're gonna have to
yes.
Beat. But I'm like, you're right. Okay, I got it. But you need that sometimes. Sometimes, you're in your head and you're like, and then
That's
something
part
in
of it
nature,
too.
like the most random things in nature. You're just
Yeah.
like, oh wait, this is teaching me something.
Yeah.
Nature's like, get your life together.
It's like, oh, do I have to? Yeah.
It's like especially if you want more of these moments, like
It
I
will
will
though.
be here waiting, but also I need you to figure it out.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So thank you again.
Yeah.
We will be continuing our Day of Roost later this evening. If anyone is interested, sorry, when I say anyone, I don't mean anyone because it is an affinity space. So Black people specifically, we have a virtual mental health social that is going on at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you would like to join, we will be on Zoom and sharing, more of these experiences about our joy, but also challenges and struggles to, work on building community, building relationships, finding each other, like building our flock as a community and what that means for us. And then I will have a prize raffle, so we'll have a chance to win a prize and hopefully continue to have these important conversations beyond Black Birders Week. Obviously, we don't want to keep it within the week, but ongoing throughout the year and beyond. So again, continue to share. Roll call wasn't just for Sunday; it can be through the whole week. So if you want to share your experience as a birder or a nature enthusiast, continue to do that online and offline. We have been seeing so many amazing posts of people introducing themselves and sharing their passion and the impact of Black Birders Week, but also what it's been doing for their mental health or their career, just giving them opportunities to engage in different ways. And I am so thankful for that. And I am thankful for you, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm thankful for you guys having me and because this is a healing space for me too, being able to talk about everything. So thank you very much.
Yay. Yeah. Well, thank you all again. Continue to stay engaged online. We'll see you. I will see you. I hope a couple co-moderators with me, Jen and another Nicole, helping out with the virtual event later this evening. But again, check out our website, www.blackafnstem. We have activities, we have giveaways happening every day, events, in person and virtual events that you can participate in, sign up for. So be on the lookout on social media as far as our website, or as well as our website, and stay connected. Thank you all.
Thank you.